share prices continued to tumble.
Lehman Brothers was forced to declare itself bankrupt.
The largest single point drop.
兄弟已经进入了破产清算程序。
In 2007 and 2008, the world was brought to its knees by the excesses of American deregulation. A lot of the blame lies in Clinton-era neoliberal policies, in which Glass-Steagall, an act that was almost specifically designed to prevent this disaster, was removed so that wealthy capitalists could have more freedom to gamble with the world economy. It didn't take much more than a decade to become a disaster.
It's a Wall Street government.
Why do you think there isn't a more systematic investigation being undertaken?
Because then you'll find the culprit.
They let it happen, risking what little we had left in this financial system for greed. They are our elected representatives, and while we did elect them, who do they represent, and why? According to a now infamous Princeton study, American politicians don't vote according to the desires of the public. Not at all. Instead, they represent a smaller subset of Americans, the wealthy capitalists that paid their way into office. This brings us to the biggest issue in electoral politics that you probably won't hear on the debate stage: money in politics. So ingrained in both the left and right, the rich lobbyists and the donor class, rich capitalists investing in policy and stocks, steal our government away from us before they even win the vote.
Researchers at Princeton University looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a pretty simple question: does the government represent the people? Now, this is what they found. This axis here represents public support for any given idea. On the left at 0% are ideas that not a single American wants. On the right at 100% are ideas that everyone supports. This axis represents the likelihood of Congress passing a law that reflects any of these ideas, from a 0 to a 100% chance. On this graph, an ideal republic would look like this. If 50% of the public supports an idea, there's a 50% chance of it becoming law. If 80% of us support something, there's an 80% chance. You get the idea. Now, most Americans would probably agree that, with a few exceptions, we should be as close to this ideal as possible. Unfortunately, the way America actually works doesn't even come close. Take an idea that nobody supports, literally nobody, and it has about a 30% chance of becoming federal law. Now, take an incredibly popular idea, the most popular idea this country has ever seen, and there's also about a 30% chance of it becoming law. This means that the number of American voters for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. Put another way, and I'm just going to quote the Princeton study directly here, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. So if you've ever felt like your opinion doesn't matter and that the government doesn't really care what you think, well, you're right. But there's a catch. This flat line only accounts for the bottom 90% of income earners in America. Economic elites, business interests, people who can afford lobbyists, they get their own line. Look at how much closer their line is to the ideal. When they want something, the government is much more likely to do it. And when they don't, they have the power to completely block it from happening, no matter how much the rest of the country supports it.
America. We're almost shameless victims to trends. For a while, many of us scoured supermarkets for the 100% organic label for what good it did us. Let me suggest you look for another label, perhaps even more important to your health in the big picture: 100% grassroots funded politicians. If we can be so hip as to drink small batch microbrews, then we can check to see the average donation statistics to see who's making the most off of wealthier donors, to whom they may owe personal favors or considerations. Let's say no to super PACs and donation bundling, and let's say yes to politicians who talk about overturning Citizens United. So who in America is that right now? Well, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are the only top-tier candidates that have made a commitment to not having big corporate donors. And between the two of them, Bernie has the higher percentage of small donations and the lowest average donation in the field, with the last quarter coming in at about $14 a piece. And his campaign has over 1 million unique donors. Another candidate with a Bernie-level percentage of small contributors this quarter is Andrew Yang, with 81% of his second quarter donations being under $200 compared to Bernie's towering 84%. The number was previously much lower, and overall his campaign has been about 2/3 funded by contributions of under $200. Still, this seems to be higher than Warren's historical average, which comes in at just under 50%. I want to give a special shout out to OpenSecrets.org for making this information so accessible and for being such a great resource. So let's vote more ethically and in our own interests. Let's take our democracy back from them.
Alright, you know what to do by now. It's YouTube. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out the links in the description.